It has been more than 2 months since Russia attacked Ukraine. The world sees it as the biggest catastrophe since WW2. Russia, after endeavors of 2 months trying to take control of Ukraine, seems losing. Though considering Russia's military power, it is quite capable of destroying Ukraine, the motive seems to be taking control of its major cities instead of destroying them. It is clearly obvious that a genocide is taking place in the heart of Europe. After the initial phase, Russia seems to be weakened in the war. Well, there are several reasons for that, but generally, it could be said that Kremlin may have underestimated Ukraine and its capabilities. The failure of Putin's strategy early in the war forced Russia to devise a new plan. Massive artillery bombardments and attempts to encircle and besiege Ukraine's biggest cities were more successful than what they came up with, and more brutal. However, Russia's first mistakes allowed Ukraine to entrench and receive external supplies from NATO forces, strengthening its fortifications. Ukrainians, on the other hand, are protecting their homes and families against an unjustified invasion. Volodymyr Zelensky, their dynamic leader, has taken a personal stand in Kiev. High Ukrainian morale has boosted Ukrainian cohesion and the ability of its forces to impose substantial casualties on Russian forces. Spurred by Zelensky's extraordinary leadership and personal heroism, reports suggest that Russia launched around 100 missiles on the targeted territories of Ukraine. Precisely, it could be said that Kremlin's motive was to take control of the powerful cities of Ukraine instead of destroying them. During the initial stage of the invasion, Russia had significant success. Throughout the time, that success seems to be lessened. Russia had been unable to take hold of the major cities of Ukraine despite fighting hard. Kremlin's military had fought hard in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and Mariupol, but Ukraine had given a tough time holding the territories. The latest reports tell that Ukraine has fought back hard and is gaining ground back in several parts. Russia currently is facing some heavy material losses against Ukraine. The facts based on which Russia seems to be losing war are that, till now, Russia has suffered up to 2,113 military losses, and Ukraine has suffered 631 military losses, which basically comprise tanks, armed vehicles, other vehicles, and helicopters. Also, experts claim that Ukraine has intercepted Russian communications, blocked Russian signals, blinded Russian monitoring, and captured some of Russia's most advanced EW systems. The US and its NATO allies have contributed vital electronic warfare, EW, equipment and training. However, according to American specialists, the Ukrainians modified these high-tech weapons to defend their motherland. Contemplating on the tactical terms of war studies, Ukraine, after collapsing in the initial phase and them fighting back with results in favor, is because Russia opted to carry on its attack on the ground. Ukraine having the advantage of knowing its territory well, and also Russia advancing through road, became quite predictable. In towns and smaller cities, Ukrainian forces have slowed Russian soldiers. Street-to-street warfare benefits defenders, who can conceal and launch ambushes thanks to their greater understanding of the city's terrain. They have struck Russian units that are isolated and exposed while moving on open roadways, making them easy targets. They have raided poorly secured supply lines on several occasions in order to deny Russians essential commodities such as fuel. The character of the Ukrainian choice became obvious as the combat progressed. Rather than fighting Russians in large-scale fights on open ground, when Russia's numerical advantage would be decisive, the Ukrainians chose to fight in a series of smaller-scale battles. This, however, resulted in the favor of Ukraine, allowing them to ambush Russian forces, and it aggravated Russia's weakness as well. Nothing can be predicted in war. Anything from Russian reinforcements to increased air force deployment to the fall of beleaguered Mariupol might breathe new life into the Russian offensive. Even if Russia improves its battlefield performance, its ultimate goal of a Ukraine that becomes completely obedient to Russia, as appears to be slipping away. Because of Russia's incapacity to overthrow Kiev quickly, as well as the strong resistance and rising nationalist sentiment among Ukrainians, it's difficult to see Russia effectively putting its own administration in Kiev. Considering the current situation of Ukraine's upper hand in war does not mean the Russian operation will be a complete failure. The rest of the outcome of the military campaign, they may be able to extract considerable political concessions from Zelensky in continuing peace talks. The horrible siege throughout the major cities of Ukraine currently the Mariupol is facing, continuous bombardment will benefit Russia in the negotiations. They will have more leverage. They might use this to get favorable terms, such as Ukrainian acknowledgement of Russia's annexation of Crimea, and a neutrality commitment not to join NATO, or the EU. It is difficult to predict the talks between these two nations. But it seems quite predictable that instead of destruction, a negotiated end to the war is more foreseeable. Ukraine's strong defense has made Russia's aim of comprehensive victory futile. The question also arises, what if Russia loses the war? It is believed that the loss of Russia will benefit the international community a lot. Ukraine would be the first and most important benefit. A new era of true freedom and European integration would dawn, with post-war Ukraine serving as a model for emerging democracies all across the world. The reconstruction effort will take time, but the new Ukraine that emerges from the ruins will be a cherished member of the European community, with a strong sense of national purpose and a much improved infrastructure. Putin's entire plan of invasion has shrunk. In just over a year, he's gone from celebrating inside the Beltway insurgency to suffering a series of humiliating military defeats in a conflict that most Russians thought to last only a few hours. He is now regarded as a war criminal in Western capitals.